Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to Lesson 9, the final lesson in Section 1 of this series on developing a survival game. In this video, we'll be setting up the functionality of our main UI. I hope you've enjoyed working on your survival game so far. I hope you've gotten something from these. If you've learned something, engaged with the challenges, what have you, I hope just overall you're enjoying the series so far. In the next section, we'll begin working on our inventory system. That said, this series and this video have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors like Random Number Generator. And that said, open up your project and let's finish Section 1 of this series. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the editor for the final video in the first section of this series. In this video, we'll be setting up our character's UMG widget to actually function. So currently, it just sits there looking pretty, which also means we can get rid of those annoying print strings. Now, that said, I'm going to do something a lot of tutorials don't do. I'm going to use proper encapsulation. So as I said in the last video, we don't want, let's just open up our widget here. We don't want our widget to store all the information about the character. And what you'll see a lot of people do, and this is good for learning, good for doing a quick build. I do this even in the prep file when I'm testing things, is you'll see people do, say on event construct, get player character. We're actually gonna use that node. That node's fine to use. And then they'll cast to whatever their player character is, so BP first person. Doing this in Blueprint means that the character will always be loaded into the widget. All the functions, everything will be accessible. And that means that if we go to our character here and go to our size map, that all 16 megabytes or 17 nearly megabytes of our character will be loaded into our widget. Meaning that this, if we go to our size map here, would be 17.8 plus this 0.856 megabytes. I said 0.8 for a reason because it's in kilobytes. So we don't want to almost double the size of what we currently have. We want to keep things small. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass the key information from our character to our widget without actually filling in, or loading in our character in that way. So how do we do this? Well, we could use event dispatchers. And I've been told by people it's bad to use dispatchers and widgets. To be completely honest, I'm not 100% certain why. And I'm not a huge fan of using them for this anyway, so we're not going to do that. Instead, what we're going to do is use an interface. And an interface is a set of undefined functions that are defined in one class that can be accessed by anybody else, they can be triggered by anybody else. So we are going to create a new folder, and in that folder, we're going to put our interfaces. So in Content Survival Game Core, right-click, New Folder, Interface. Actually, it's going to be interfaces because we will have multiple interfaces that we'll end up using. So the first interface we're going to do, if we go to right-click, go to Blueprints, find your Blueprint interface, will be I_player character. All right, pop this open. Just kind of I don't know why I compiled. I meant to hit save. Oh, also really quickly, as a trick, next to compile, save on compile, only unsuccessful or always. I'll use always. That means I don't have to hit Control S or Control Shift S all the time. I'll still do so out of habit. It's a habit I haven't gotten rid of. So we start with a function in here. We're just going to name this function I as in interface get health. And I get health will be put into a category called stats. And it's going to have a return node. And that return node will be a float of health. Notice we can't do anything in here. We can't define anything in here. Where we implement this function, we will be able to define it though. All right, now we can't duplicate in functions or in interfaces as well, which is really annoying. So we're gonna create another function called I get max health because we need the max health information. Again, it's gonna go into a category called stats. I was gonna say statistics. It's gonna have one return node, which is max health. And then we will have the same for stamina. So I get stamina. And again, this will be stamina. This will be in our stats category. I get max stamina. Again, one return of max stamina. And again, the stats category. And then we only do one for hunger, because remember, hunger max is at 100. We don't need to know what the max is. It's always going to be 100. So I get hunger, which always makes me giggle. It makes me think of Homer Simpson, me so hungry, or me hungry, whatever that line was. And at some point, I will make a joke about the isotopes. And this is hunger. All right, control save, or compile. Go to the character. In your character, select your class settings. And in your class settings, you have this interface. Go to add, search for I_player character, select it. Notice now you have an interface over here. We're just going to compile though and save. And then we're going to open up this interface. Oh, this came in backwards. Forgot it does that. And we're going to be really, really easy with this. We're going to take our hunger, plug the get character hunger in there. We're done. Go to the max stamina. Let's go to stamina. Get the character stamina max, plug it in, and we're done. Same for the stamina. So now we're filling in this information, and keep doing this, by the way, for health. It's that simple. So now we have passed this information. We can pass this information of the character's information without making a cast, which is a better way of doing things. And how big is this? 22 kilobytes. It's going to get bigger, don't worry, but 22 kilobytes. Instead of passing an 18 megabyte file over, we're only passing over 22 kilobytes. That's going to save a lot of memory space. Space in memory. Memory space. All right, so now that we've done that, what we're going to do is go back to our widget, and we're going to touch those interface things in a little bit. We have some other stuff to do first. First, I only want the health bar to display if the character is injured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the right thing, which is our overlay, because it's just easier to use the overlay for this. We are going to set the visibility to hidden. So what does this do? Well, this means that the health bar is hidden for now. We are going to have it hidden unless the character is damaged. Now let's go over to our graph. And let's begin to do implementation of stuff. We don't need any of our 3 starting nodes there. We are going to do our health alerts first. So we're going to trigger custom event trigger damage alert. And we are going to get our, first let's categorize these actually. This is going to go into components. I wish I could just move everything in one mass go into components, but you can't select multiple nodes, unfortunately. And if you're in earlier versions of UE4, one, I'm not sure if this project will work there, but 2, yeah, some earlier versions, you can't do this. It really annoys me. I know in 4, like 16 and 17, you can't. At least 4.16. I'm just going to collapse that down. And with that collapse down, I am going to create a new function, or new variable called DMG for damage opacity. So remember, we set the opacity for our damage alert here to 0 on the alpha. We're going to change that. This is a type of float, by the way. And I'm going to put this in a category just called health. I don't need to have subcategories for this widget. And we're going to set this value, and we're going to do a float plus float here. We are going to take the current opacity and plug it in there. And we'll do a branch. You could do a clamp as well instead of this branch. And we're going to check if our damage opacity is greater than 1. If it is greater than 1, which is 100%, we are going to set it to 1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these nodes, I'm going to collapse them down to a function. This function will be increase DMG opacity. Just gonna open it up, and I'm going to plug that into there. This B will be our increase amount, and then I'll put a return node. And again, in good practice, just getting a habit with a false here, I'm gonna plug that into that return, put another reroute in, put yet another reroute in, line them up, and just make this a little bit tighter and neater looking. All right, with that done, I'm gonna go back to my event graph, line that back up. In my event graph, I am going to set my opacity. So I'm going to open this components up. We have my damage alert image, and I am going to set opacity. We're going to plug this into here, and our damage opacity, we're just going to plug that into there. There we go. And we can collapse this down to a function, because we're going to use it elsewhere, of set alert DMG opacity. Once we've done that, and I'm going to default this out, by the way, to 0.2, we are going to set timer by event. This will be a looping timer that goes off every second. And what we're going to do? Well, we're going to reduce the alert. So the health bar is going to show up in the next two nodes. So we're just going to really quickly create another custom event called reduce damage alert. Doesn't mean we're healing the character, it just means we're reducing the alert, getting it off screen. And I'm going to create event. Again, I could just pull and plug into there, but I really think that's messy looking and I don't like that. And we're going to do reduce damage alert. We're going to promote this to a damage alert timer handle variable. And this will go, of course, into health because it's health related. And then finally, what we're going to do is we are going to we're going to go back to our graph because I did skip a step. We're going to select our health overlay. We're going to mark it as is variable. And you'll notice when we do that, if we go back to our graph, it's now here. It's a variable. So we're going to get it, and then we're going to go back to that real quick and put it in the correct category of components. With that done, we are going to set visibility. And it is that setter node there. Plug that into there, move that down there, take the two nodes, collapse it down to a function of set health bar visibility. All right, pop that open. Put a return node in. I feel like I skipped the return node in one of these, so I'm going to go back and double check that. Take from here, plug into there, compile, save, go back to the event graph. I hate when you do that to me. All right. I think we did. Yeah, we did skip a return node. Put a return node in there. Bad Zach. And for this, we're going to do a hit test invisible. In newer versions of the engine, this might be hit test, not hit testable, self and children. It's the same thing. So hit test invisible and not hit testable are the same thing. You can also do self hit test invisible, but we're just going to do hit test invisible. So in other words, that if we click on it, it's not going to really register what's going on there. There's nothing for it to do. All right. So this will put the alert on the screen. We want to get rid of the alert. So what we're going to do is duplicate our increase alert here. And by the way, we're just going to put this in the same category of health as in the bottom. So we're going to take our increase, we're going to duplicate it as our decrease opacity. Oh, sorry, I just spelled a whole bunch of things wrong there. It should be decrease DMG opacity either way anyway. And here, we're going to get rid of this. Actually, before we get rid of that, we're going to just get rid of the plus. This will be our decrease amount. And we will do a float minus float. This is the B value. Our A value is damage opacity. We plug it in there. And we can put a clamp on this if we want. And in fact, actually, I think I am going to, just to be on the safe side. So if this is less than 0, then we are going to set it to 0. So again, you could do a clamp instead. All right, with that done, I'm going to compile save, return to my event graph, and I'm going to take my decrease, plug it there, and it will decrease at the same rate of 0.2. Next, I am going to set my damage alert opacity, plug that into there. Actually, I lied to you. What we're going to do is we're going to come back in here. We're going to actually take that minus a reroute and cut it. Get rid of this, plug that into the return. I need to trust the way I did things in this other file. My mistake a few videos back where I didn't catch an error has made me a little bit paranoid. We're going to plug that into there instead. In fact, actually, what I'm going to do is make this less than or equal to 0. So if it's less than or equal to 0, we're just going to make sure that it is actually 0. And then we're going to take our timer handle, and we are going to clear and invalidate timer by handle. So we are now resetting our timer and our opacity. So this is going to be called our reset BMG opacity. It's actually doing more than that, but meh. All right, that goes into our health folder now, or health category. And then finally, we're going to have another custom event called trigger healed. If the character is completely healed, then we want to set our progress bar to be hidden. But we're actually going to give this as an option on triggering this. So we'll pass that into our event there. Refresh this node if you get that error. There we go. Re-put that value back in of 0.2. And this is our health alerts done. So health alerts. Next, we're going to have our stamina alert, and it's going to be very similar. Custom event. This will be trigger stamina alert. And here, we're going to calculate our stamina opacity. So what we want to do is get what our character's stamina is. So it's going to be get player character. And what we're going to do is search for I get stamina. So we now have this I get stamina message. We're sending a message to the player to return the value here of stamina or whatever else we plugged in there. So we're getting this information back. We're also going to take this again, and we want to get the stamina max. So I get stamina max, or I get max stamina. Plug that into there. And let's put another reroute here so it's a little bit easier to read. Just going to move that this way. What we're going to do is we're going to normalize this to a range. So we're going to pull off our stamina here and do normalize to range. And what this does is it gives a value in a proportion, really. So what does it give a value in proportion of? From 0 to whatever our max is. So if this is 100 per this, and this is 15, we get a 0.5. So we're going to take that, and it gives us that amount. Now what we're going to do with this is we want to take this away from 1. Because 1, so it needs to be in the B pin here, 1 represents our max opacity. So I'm going to set that to 1. And then I'm going to clamp this value. As I mentioned in the last video, yeah, we're using black, but we're going to make sure that black isn't too overbearing. So we're going to clamp it. Oh, not clamp access. Sorry. Clamp float. By clamping the float between a value of 0 and our whatever our max opacity setting is going to be, which I'm going to make that 0.8, it won't get past 0.8. So what that's going to look like if we go to our designer, select our stamina alert, and set this to 0.8 is, well, it looks black here, but trust me, that is a gray. Or it's grayish. It's not complete. It is black, but it's see-through black. That's my point. We're going to pull off this max though and promote to variable, and this will be our STA for stamina max opacity. And I'm just going to put this in my stamina folder. which I just created, a category. So all we're doing here is getting our values and setting a value. I'm going to take all of these nodes and I'm going to collapse them to a function called calculate stat opacity. I'm just going to pop this open, line that up, and pull off of here. And I'm going to put a return node in. In this return node, I'm going to take the clamp value and pass it out. All right, with that done, let's return back to our event graph. With this value, we are going to set our stat opacity. So I'm going to promote this to a variable, and this will be stat for stamina opacity. I'm going to put this in my stamina folder or category, and then I'm going to do a branch. And what we're going to do here on this branch is we're going to check, is our opacity greater than our max opacity? If it is greater than our max, we are going to set our stamina opacity to our max. So we're just going to take our stat opacity, set it here. Make sure to plug that in because I skipped that. So stat is on top, max is on bottom. Or current's on top, max is on bottom. They both say stat. We're going to set this to our max. And this way, if you change what your max is, hey, you don't have to change all the other nodes. Take all of these nodes, collapse to function, and this is set stat opacity. So we calculate it, then we set it, and come in, put a return node in, and like usual, for good practice, seriously, I can't stress that enough, put that into the false as well. So we go around the thing we're setting. And then let's go back to our event graph. Let's also then put these into the stamina category, which for some reason every so often I do call folder. Forgive me for that. And then we are going to do the same thing we did up here, but with our stamina image. So where is our stamina alert image? We're going to get it. We are going to set opacity. We are going to set opacity to our stamina max opacity. That's something probably we will do, not max opacity, our stamina opacity. Something we will probably do down the road is actually put lerps in, so it's a smoother transition on this getting darker, but it actually already kind of does lerp on its own with the way the timers are set up. And this will be set alert stat opacity. So one, we're calculating the actual value, and one, we're setting it on the actual image. So that's why we called it alert. It will go into our stamina. Let's pop this open and not make the same mistake I did with the last one. You're not opening Visual Studio, don't lie to me. Hit return, compile, save, and back to our event graph. All right, next we're gonna have a reduce alert. So we're just going to do a custom event, and this will be reduce stamina alert. Also, in good terms of polymorphism, you don't need this. Because all I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate all three of those nodes, literally. And this is our stamina alerts. All right, so if I hit play now, and I do, oh, sorry, we have to actually trigger this in the character first. So let's go to our character. And in our character, what we're going to do is actually trigger these things to go off. So let's do our event graph. Let's find our stamina here. And on our stamina, well, we have access to all those functions we just made because we have our reference to our main UI. So we're hard loaded the main UI into our character, which is fine. We want that reference to be one way. We are going to trigger our stamina alert. There we go. We can delete that. We can then, oh, also I'm going to comment this out before I forget. If we run out of stamina and always sprinting, that's what that's about. And now if we come down here, we are going to get rid of that print string, which I got rid of already. We're going to get our main UI and reduce stamina alert. Again, we actually technically don't need that. Again, sorry if you can hear some weird noises in the background. My heating pipes are still having some weirdness. And we're done with this. We are now done completely with our stamina system. So I can comment that out as stamina system. There we go. All right, as for our hunger, well, technically we'll be done with this in the next section, but we're about to be done with it for this section. But we'll take care of that in a moment. Let's go to our stats, health, damage, and heal. And what we're going to do with our damage character. Remember how I said we're going to have something on this false here, so we need to have this in. We're going to get our main UI. We are going to trigger damage alert. Plug that into there. I used to know how to break this, but now I can't remember for the life of me. Plug that into there. Plug that into there. And yep, there we go. All right, so we're now triggering our damage alert. Compile, save. Oh, whoa. First off, that says health character instead of heal character. And this is for the damage character. So we're going to delete that from there. Put that in the correct function in our damage character. I am so glad I looked up when I was about to change over to the heal character. So now we have our damage alert in place. So we can actually get rid of the print string on our debugger there if we want. And for our heal character, now that I spelled really? Heal character. The number of times I spelled that wrong is horrifying. Plug those reroutes back into each other. Up here, what we're going to do is get our main UI. And if we are healed, we are going to trigger healed. And we're going to set this back to hidden. So, cool. Break that. Plug that into there. And let's test this out now. I start running. Notice ooh, the trigger heal did not work correctly. My screen's getting darker. I take damage. My screen gets lighter. We're going to just change this real quick to if it's greater than or equal to. There we go. Now that should work. So if I do damage and then heal, character health. So I'm just an idiot. I literally paused to test something, and then middle of testing it, noticed that says visible instead of hidden. Okay, that should still be equals to. So there we go. It's gone. Now let's actually set the progress bars up, and we're gonna try to whiz through this as fast as possible because it's the same thing 3 times over. Really, I'm not being funny when I say that. We've taken care of our alerts, so all we're gonna do is select our first progress bar of our stamina. We are going to find where our percentage is and click create binding next to it, and this will be our set stamina prog bar. All right. All we're going to do, the only one of these are going to be different is the health. We're going to break that for a moment. We're going to right click, get player character. Remember, this is how we're avoiding casting. We're using an interface of I get stamina. We want the message. Plug that into there. Line that up, put a reroute in to make it all nice and easy to read. I get max stamina. Plug that into there. And now we're going to use another node similar to that range node we used earlier. However, oddly enough, we could have used this node instead of the node we did use in here. But I want to show you multiple ways of going about this. So if you feel like trying to use this node instead, go for it. And that is we're going to clamp it to a range. So map range clamped. So we take a value in. We have a base of 0. So this is the min up to our in B. And then we give a range that we allow this to output. And because the progress bar is a 0 to 1, which is if you multiply proportions by 100, that's 0 to 100. So 1 times 100 is 100. 0.99 times 100 is 99 proportion. We will set this to a range of 0 to 1, so we get that proportion. And we use the max because if our max changes, if it becomes 110, 100 is no longer going to be 100%. It's going to be shy of 100%. And we return the value there. All right. The health one is slightly different. The health one, by the way, I'm putting this in a category called progress bars. Yeah, I actually spelled progress out for once in one of my tutorials. It's amazing, I know. So the health one, we actually do this differently because we don't have a max. So again, select the hunger bar itself, find the percentage, bind. This will be our set hunger prog bar. These are actually technically pure functions. And so it's really, they're getter values in the end of the day, but I like saying set. It makes me, it just fits with my understanding better. I realize, and you should also realize, these really aren't setters. These are really getters. Get player character. We could use get owning player too. I get hunger. I'm not going to make my isotopes joke just yet. That'll be probably in the next section when we work on food items. And all we're going to do, because this doesn't have a max, is map range clamped. We can just put this in as 100 and this in as 1. And now as the hunger bar goes down, the character is getting more hungry. Ooh. This goes in there. And now the health one is really easy. We can actually copy this to save ourselves just like 30 seconds of work. Select the health bar. I think I said hunger. I meant health. And create binding. And this is set health prog bar. And all we're going to do here is we're going to break that, paste this in here. We are going to pull off of this and do I get health. Just move that stamina into health instead. Going to pull off of this. I get max health. Plug that into our in range B. Plug these into each other. And yeah, delete that. I guess this might be faster for me having known what I'm doing. So sorry if that wasn't as fast for you. I am worried about record time because this is, like last checked, already over 20 minutes. And I'm now over 30 minutes. So I'm going to just bring this back over here, plug that into there, plug that into there. And all I'm going to do at this point is I am going to hit play. And I'm going to make sure this actually works. All right, there's my progress bar going down. As I run, my stamina bar is going down. My hunger bar is going to take... Oh, there it is. It's going down. It's just very slow because it takes a second. So it just is lurching down and down and down. Now that we've done that, let's go back to our player character real quick. Let's go to our event graph on our debug. Bye-bye to those two nodes. We're done with that. Let's find this print string down here. We're done with that. And while technically we're not done with our hunger system, I am going to comment this out because we finished the primary part. And this is our hunger system. So that takes us through everything we need to do in section 1 of this tutorial. So congratulations on completing the first section. We have some other stuff we'll do, and in the next section we'll be doing our inventory system. The section after that we'll be doing our equipment system. That said, if you've enjoyed section 1, if you've enjoyed working on your character statistics, setting up your UMG widgets, using interfaces, setting up a hunger and stamina system and health system, make sure to hit that like button down below. And also make sure to hit the subscribe and notify bell so you know when the next video is out. And that next video will be the first video of our inventory system. This series, by the way, has been brought to you by my Patreon sponsors, such as Quad Menson, Haynes, and Rian. And if you want a copy of this project, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. Patreon supporters at upper tiers get instant access to all ongoing YouTube projects that I am doing, as well as private lessons. In addition, other subscribers on Patreon get projects once the YouTube series for that project is completed. All of that said, also consider joining our Discord community. And now all of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next section of this tutorial series, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.